Welcome to the Meet Me podcast, a podcast all about our multifaceted human nature and constant journey through self-discovery, with personal stories and insights around trauma, motherhood, relationships, spirituality, and individuality. I'm your host, Michelle Malik. Thanks for listening. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Meet Me podcast. As always, I am your host, Michelle Malik, and through this podcast, I hope to encourage others into taking their trauma and experiences and transforming them into power, purpose, and connection. So excited to sit down for another solo episode today. Before diving into the bulk of the episode, I did want to quickly announce that starting today, when this episode is released, I will be providing a little promotion for anybody who has been following my journey on Instagram, or recently I just joined TikTok again. I have been doing some collective card pulls with tarot and oracle decks that I have had for quite a while and have really loved that process. And it's actually something that I've been interested in doing for a couple years now, but I'm excited to announce that I will be offering that as an additional service. So starting from now until July 13th, I will be offering a promotion for anybody who books a healing service within that time frame. The appointment itself does not have to fall within those dates, but if you secure an appointment from today's episode date until July 13th, you will receive a free personalized card reading. This will be something that will be emailed to you, just a video of the cards that are pulled, my interpretations of them, general guidance primarily, or advice that you need to hear, really just kind of allowing whatever messages that need to come through to get to you, to allow those to come through. So if you're interested, I will include that information in the description, but you can book a session, you can DM me, message me, and let me know that you're interested in having the free reading, and we'll coordinate from there. So excited to add that. After the 13th, I do plan to announce that as a separate service item. So be on the lookout for that if you're looking for just the tarot readings, card readings in the future. But so excited to sit down today because although it's technically next week, I wanted to make this episode to celebrate a full year of this podcast endeavor. Technically, the anniversary of my first episode is July 4th. And since I won't be having an episode next week, I figured I would just celebrate that today and wanted to spend today's time just sharing some of my reflection over the last year. It's just crazy to think that I sat down and started this process just recording off of my iPad, didn't really know exactly where it was going to go, where it's going to lead. Still a lot of unknown in that regard currently. And I have really kind of over the past year found so much of myself throughout this process, from being so hesitant to share my voice. And honestly, I started the podcast with the intention of not having to show my face. I thought it would be a lot less pressure, helped me to kind of work through the limiting beliefs that I had a little bit easier when I didn't feel like I was being fully shown or seen. And looking back now, a year in, this process, this podcast, this platform has really assisted me in feeling much more confident about my voice, about my message that I have to share, and about being seen. I feel a lot more comfortable with the idea of people knowing me in this way. And I just wanted to first say thank you to literally any person who has spent 5 minutes, 10 minutes, every episode, whatever amount of time that you have spent sharing your energy with me and listening to what I have to share, and sharing your feedback, reposting, resharing anything that I've created for you. I just am so grateful for all of the support that I've received over the course of this year. To all of the guests that I've had on, talking to them honestly has been so inspirational to me in my journey. Just being able to connect with people who are a little bit further along in their journey to being like a spiritual entrepreneur has really helped me, again, finding my unique place in all of this. And I'm so grateful for that. I still have so many guest conversations to share with you guys. So can't wait to continue to release those. And also huge shout out to my mentor and coach who was a pivotal point in me even getting to this place of my journey. You can find her on Instagram at Breakup with Busy. Her name's Marisa and she is amazing. So huge shout out to her. She really helped me in identifying my limiting beliefs, where my blockages were stored, working through the traumas that were causing me to kind of be in this like back and forth energy of wanting to take the dive, then being too scared, and really just, again, trusting myself. So grateful for all of the support that I received, along with my Divine Feminine Shaman Academy. I'll include the information for them as well if you're interested in learning from them. They do regular posts on Facebook. My shamanic journey actually started with Julia, who helps run the course. And yeah, so it's just been such a transformative year. And as much as I am reflecting over the past year, I encourage anybody listening to this to take some time aside, because I know life gets so busy. We get so in the day to day, going through the motions, just trying to survive the week, but really take some time to look back on all of the growth that you yourself have experienced over the past year. I know from my own personal circle, I've seen so many enormous changes in the people around me. And even if it doesn't seem like big changes at first, when you look back and realize maybe even just how your mentality has shifted, where your attention has gone, maybe certain habits or ways that you used to spend your time, there's been shifts in that area, or just again, like the way that you view yourself, the way that you view your journey, really take time to appreciate the progress that you've made, because it's so important as we're continuing on our journey, working towards our goals, trying to get to a place where we feel fulfilled fully, right? It's like, just because you're not at your complete state of fulfillment, whatever that looks like to you, it's important to recognize the steps in your journey and to recognize that although you're not at the end goal, you're still so much further than where you were before. And so that has been such a eye-opening experience for me, again, through this podcasting journey. And I do feel it is transforming kind of before my eyes. I feel I'm looking at things from a new perspective, a new direction. One of the main things that I wanted to get across in this episode, and kind of just allowing me to feel more authentic, more true to myself. I started the podcast with the idea of sharing all these different aspects of myself, but really focused on kind of traumatic events that have happened, how I've overcome those. And I'm so grateful for the response on those episodes. And it's not that I won't be sharing those things in the future, but what I've realized too is there was a part of me that was sort of not necessarily hiding, because it was always there, but there was a part of me that was sort of limiting the amount of spiritual, quote unquote, woo-woo things that I would share on this platform, because I wanted it to be accessible. And although that is still a goal of mine, I do want these concepts to be accessible to those who maybe aren't quite there on their journey, or, are maybe just dipping their toes in the spiritual world. And wherever you're at, I accept, and I totally appreciate that, because everyone has to start somewhere. But I realized that I am now at a point where I no longer want to filter that side of me out. It is something that is part of my life, part of my belief system, part of the way that I view literally everything, how I move through the world, how I express myself. And so what I guess you can expect on this, who knows, next year or however much longer I continue with this podcast, expect to have a little bit more of that spiritual twist on things. And some of it may be kind of just viewing things from a higher perspective through possibly channeling more messages or connecting to spirit in that way. Because one of the things that has been huge for me is realizing and trusting the connection that I have with the source, universe, the spirit, God, whatever it is that you resonate with. And it's something that I've had for quite a while. But again, choosing to water that down, choosing to maybe not always trust fully, or allowing my ego to get in the way to say, oh, you're just making it up. Oh, no, that's just your mind tricking you into thinking something bigger than it actually is. But as I've developed over the course of this year, it's really been a journey of a few years now, but especially over the course of this year, I've really come to trust that connection even more so. And kind of going back to what I was talking about at the intro with sharing these Oracle Tarot messages, This is something that I've been doing since 2020. I have been actively pulling cards literally, I would say just about every day, unless I was out of town or something and I didn't have access to my cards. It's something I've been doing every day, deepening that connection, deepening my understanding, deepening my intuition in interpreting the cards. I literally came across a video, this was like last week, I had a memory pop up of a recording of myself from September of 2022, so almost 2 years ago. And this was when I had first had the idea of sharing these kinds of messages, but they always just stayed in the drafts or they just stayed on my camera roll. It was really just like practice for me to get comfortable seeing myself on camera, hearing myself deliver these messages. And I also want to share that as kind of means for encouragement that if there's something that you've been considering doing and you keep thinking, oh, now's not the time, just start somewhere. Like just do something that makes you feel good about it. Because again, it's been 2 years since I had that video recording, and now I'm openly, actively sharing these messages on a consistent basis. And I don't know that the version of me 2 years ago necessarily expected it to go exactly in the way that it has. But I'm so grateful that my intuition always knew that this was something that I was capable of. But again, my ego just kept making me doubt that and making me feel like there wasn't going to be enough value, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't going to have as much of an impact as I had hoped. And again, this past year has really helped me to quiet that side of myself, to quiet the side of myself that constantly doubts every step of the way. And this didn't come easy because, as much as I've talked about it on the podcast, there are so many layers to healing these conditionings that we've received over the course of our lives. And even when we understand and pinpoint where these came from, like for me, it was very clear that I had this from, my abusive childhood, even like abusive, toxic friendships that I carried throughout school, even into adulthood. There were so many aspects and factors that I could attribute to my belief system in doubting every step of the way. And so it took a lot of peeling back those layers, shedding those skins. And it was a combination of like professional support in therapy, which did support a lot, but also like energetic support with the energy healing, the shamanic work that I've done. Even like for those of you who don't have access to that layer of deep healing, there are so many free resources on YouTube that I feel have really made a huge difference as well, whether that be guided meditations. There's also like overnight subliminals that you can listen to that actually help to reframe your subconscious mind, because that's where this is all stored. In addition to like somatic practices to release some of the trapped physical emotions, shadow work is huge as well, facing the deepest, darkest parts of ourselves and confronting them, but also accepting them. There's just been this really big focus this past year on accepting and forgiving myself for all of the mistakes, all of the missteps, all of the doubts even that I've experienced over the course of my journey, because it isn't helpful if you are in a place of doubting yourself to then make yourself feel bad for doubting yourself, right? Like we have to come at it from a place of grace and acceptance and love. And I've really been more comfortable with, even I'm not perfect, like I am still human. I definitely still have moments where the hurt aspect of me comes out if I'm like overstimulated, if I maybe wasn't taking care of myself enough that day, if, I'm just having a difficult time and I feel like everything's happening at once and I just react out of a hurt place. Those moments still happen, definitely not as frequently as I used to. But what I've really kind of taken note of in regards to the growth that I've experienced is in the way that I respond to myself afterwards. Again, kind of bringing it back to this podcast, there are so many times where I'm like in my head about how I said something, or after I posted an episode, I'm like, crap, I forgot to include this, or I should have said that instead, or whatever it is, nitpicking everything and stopping and realizing that that's not helpful. What's helpful is being proud of myself for even putting it out there, something that, again, past versions of myself would have literally been terrified and never would have done, never would have seen herself doing. And so the fact that I've even overcome that initial barrier and getting things out there is a huge step. So again, like recognizing the progress, also comforting myself and knowing that I know where these thoughts are coming from. I know why you're worried. I know why you're scared of being heard because, in the past, maybe my voice wasn't always reciprocated or received in the way that I wanted it to be. And so it's like acknowledging where those past pains are or where those pains are coming from in my response, but then also, again, guiding it back to love and saying, I'm so proud of you. I'm so grateful that you chose to do this. And even if it's not forever, I'm not necessarily seeing this project as like my end goal. There are so many things that I am working towards manifesting that I see for myself and how I can make an impact on the world. At the end of the day, I know that I want to help heal others, but there are so many different ways in which I want to do that. And this is just one of the mediums that I am choosing to go through right now. And so even if this doesn't last forever, again, I'm looking at it from a place of gratitude for how much it has given me in this short amount of time. Even the fact that I have persevered to make it to a year is a huge step for me as well, because I have always been somebody who can kind of like start and stop things. I start when I feel really good and then I get nervous and I freak out, or I think that it's not good enough and I stop. And even though I've felt those things throughout this process, I've definitely had those moments where I was kind of confused about what I was even doing or if this was even providing value, but I still pushed through. And I think that perseverance through the feelings of discomfort, through the feelings of fear, that is like where we really find ourselves and our growth and our resilience as human beings. Like knowing that something is difficult, knowing that it's uncomfortable, and still doing it because we trust that it is still for our best benefit. And so I've just been really in this place of sort of amazement in how, in like our human ability to persevere through challenges, but also in the universe's way of making things fall into place exactly how they're meant to. And we can resist all we want, and maybe that'll delay things, but I've really come to this place of like falling into flow. And for those of you, again, who have been following me along this journey, it's been about 2.5 months since I lost my last job and have really taken the dive and trusting myself and building this spiritual community, providing these offerings full time. And although I'm still at a place where I maybe don't necessarily see that the way that this is all going to work out for me, I've now fallen into a place of completely trusting that it is and being okay with the process, being okay with things taking slower than maybe I would initially like them to. Because again, like sometimes we just want that instant gratification. And I look back at when I started the podcast, back of my head, again, the ego mind is like, well, maybe I'll just get lucky and I'll get viral on my second, third, fourth, fifth episode, right? And that is great for the people who get that. But I feel like now looking back, I realized that I wasn't ready for that kind of success because I had to work on my self concept and my self trust, my self confidence in order to even get to a place where I'm comfortable being seen by that many people. I feel like I'm finally at that point where it's like I'm comfortable enough in my value and in what I have to share to where even if people don't agree with it, even if people shut me out, whether that be old friends or past family members who are looking at me thinking like, what the hell is she doing? Because I've also become such a different version of myself. So people who knew me in the past don't truly know me. I look back on some of my past behaviors and kind of cringe at the fact that I used to do certain things. But again, I recognize that as part of my journey. I don't stay in this shameful place. I look at it from a place of love, knowing that, well, that's just who I was at that time because this is what I was experiencing or this is what my beliefs were. I was still deeply hurt and wounded. And so maybe I acted out in a way that came from that place. But now that I've healed through so much and, still have some processing and things that I'm working through, I have just, again, come to this place where I'm comfortable with who I've become and who I'm on my way to becoming. And so again, as much as this is like a reflection of my past year, I hope that I'm encouraging you to look back at all of the things that you have accomplished as well, all of the growth that you have experienced in your life, and really being honest with yourself on maybe where you have control over to be better, but not allowing that to put you in a place of guilt. You don't want to guilt yourself for not being where it is that you hoped to be by now. You want to appreciate the journey and release and surrender to the flow of things happening because we are being prepped to receive our manifestations every time we put something out there. We have to be in a place where we are actually aligned and ready to receive it in order to receive it. And as much as it would be great to make a wish and it just poof, come true no matter what circumstances we're in, it doesn't really work that way. And so, I've definitely experienced a lot of frustration over the course of this time. But again, I'm like coming to this place a year later of just being appreciative for being forced to be patient, being forced to wait for things to really work out, and for me to find that internal validation for myself before I receive external validation. And again, it's not to say that I haven't received any. Again, I'm so grateful for having such a supportive circle around me, having people reach out when they resonate with episodes. It really makes it even more worth it. But outside of that, it's like I've come to this place of trusting myself more than ever. So it just feels like a very full circle moment for me, coming to a year of the podcast, finally being comfortable enough to share some of the psychic channeling that I do with the addition of these divinity tools, such as, tarot and oracle decks, just to assist in kind of creating the clear image. But again, it's like these aspects have been instilled in me for so long. And it wasn't until recently that I was finally like, you know what, this is me and I don't have to hide it. And so I don't know, I guess I just want to share my gratitude, share some of the shifts and changes that have been happening for me, but also encourage you to appreciate how far you've come and what you have overcome, because I know every single person who is listening to this has overcome some form of challenges. It is not easy out there right now. Energies are very dense. The world seems like it's crumbling apart left and right, but you are staying focused on what you have control over and how you can continue to work on yourself, work on your relationships, work on your goals, whatever that may be. Like, be proud of yourself for making it through. We're halfway through 2024. I have a really good feeling about the rest of this year. And I just am so excited to continue sharing from a place that just, again, feels a little bit more confident, a little bit more authentic. And I hope that you can sense and resonate with this shift in the energies. And, even though I'll be releasing these guest conversations that really all took place in February, March, there are some that I listen back to and I can sense that I was maybe a little nervous or a little too in my head as I was talking to them. But at the end of the day, there is so much value in these conversations from the people that I shared them with. So you'll still be receiving those. I'm not going to, self-sabotage and say, oh, because I can tell that I'm nervous, I'm not going to post that. I still want to provide the value of those conversations. But again, just wanted to kind of share that there has been this change in my energy and how I approach things and how I'm approaching this project and how I'm approaching the rest of the year. And I just can't wait for this growth to continue. And again, thank you so much for being part of this journey if you're listening. And that's really all that I had to share today. I know it's not much, but just wanted to celebrate making it to a year, trusting myself more. If you are interested in booking a session and receiving your free card reading, you can do so on my website at meetmehealing.com. Feel free to reach out to me on Instagram as well at meetme.michelle. I have the same handle on TikTok also. It's pretty much the same content, so whatever platforms you prefer, I figured I would just expand myself out to more. I am also on YouTube, although it's been a little bit limited, kind of hard to balance all the platforms all at once, but wherever you choose to support, I'm grateful, and I can't wait to continue down this journey with you. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode or any of my previous episodes, please don't forget to rate, write a review, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Spread the word. It helps the podcast grow, and I'm so looking forward to some of the upcoming content. I look forward to hearing from you and can't wait to share more with you so soon. Until then, bye.